Welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventures podcast here on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett. Spring turkey season has been winding down across the Midwest, and on this week's episode, we're going to hear how things went in the state of Missouri. Nick Oakley is with us on the show this week with the Missouri Department of Conservation. Nick, how's it going here today?
I'm doing great, Brent. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Nick, you might talk with the listeners about some of your work with MDC and your background with the agency.
Yeah, definitely. So my current position is wild turkey and ruffed grouse biologist. So that kind of gives me the role of writing and recommending regulations to then present to our commission, and then also kind of running the research for all things turkey and grouse. Definitely more on the focused on the turkey, certainly this time of year, but I do try and dabble in the grouse when I have some time. I started with the agency when I was an undergrad at Mizzou. Actually, for a little while, I worked as an hourly. So that was pretty cool. I got my foot in the door, but then I left for several years, went out west and did some odds and ends. Got my master's degree at University of Wyoming. Ended up coming back to Columbia because my wife took a job with the Department of Conservation, and just sort of slowly worked my way to the turkey position. So that's where I'm at now.
What led you to this line of work? Has it always been a passion for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I grew up kind of in the forest. I tell people, like, at the end of a long driveway, no houses in sight. So I was really fortunate that I had kind of the outdoors to enjoy as a kid. Whenever I was finishing up high school, I was pretty good in the sciences. I was trying to think about things that I wanted to do. And I have an uncle who actually was a forester for MDC, and I think he probably mentioned, like, there is such a thing as a wildlife biologist. And I thought to myself, okay, that sounds interesting. So I looked into it a little bit. Mizzou happened to have a wildlife biology program, so I went into that, and it kind of went that way for me. I think a pretty standard kind of story for a Midwestern wildlife biologist is they grew up kind of enjoying hunting and fishing and being outdoors, and that's certainly true for me as well.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on the job and the career
Yeah.
path. I grew up in a hunting background in Northwest Missouri, is where I grew up, and was really into deer hunting. Still am today. Nothing gets me fired up like those spring gobblers on an early morning. So is that kind of the same for you? They get you fired up?
Absolutely. My folks are not super. They're outdoorsy. They're not much and for hunting. So I was more or less a self-taught hunter. But I remember the first year I decided I wanted to go turkey hunting. I just sort of was like, I'm gonna try turkey hunting. My dad had an old box call. I had a shotgun. I was like, I can do it, right? What could be so hard about this? And just getting bamboozled for a couple years, and yeah, hearing the birds come alive in the morning, and then the rest of the forest kind of come alive was really, it's hard to beat. I mean, it really is. I enjoy fall turkey hunting a little bit too, but it's not quite the same sensation as like the adrenaline pumping when you hear the bird come down off the roost. It's pretty hard to beat.
When I was a kid, I think I missed five before I got my first
Yeah,
gobbler.
yeah,
I think as a kid, you just don't realize how challenging it is when, even
no,
though they're in close range and you're looking down a shotgun without like a scope or
yep.
anything, it's a little challenging.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I know it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. I think we're starting to see some declines in our participation and stuff. So, that's one of those. I had such an enjoyable experience as a youth hunter, and I really, if I can do one thing for the turkey biology here at Missouri, it'd be to kind of get that participation back to where it once was, because it's so cool, and I just want more people to experience it.
Nick, I'm now living in Iowa
Mhm.
and I had tag soup this year. Didn't fill a tag after last year, had a really successful season, but
Yeah,
that's just the way it goes sometimes. But
sure.
how did things go for you this year?
Yeah, I had a pretty interesting turkey season in that my baby, I had a baby that was born just a couple weeks before the season opened. So I hadn't banked enough equity, I don't think, with my wife to take off a lot of mornings. She there was never anything spoken explicitly, but there was definitely some kind of glances, like, you sure you want to go in the morning turkey hunting? I'm like, yeah, actually, you're right. I should stick around and help out here. But I did go out a couple of mornings. I got on a bird opening morning. It was really is exactly how you draw it up. He just flew down. There was 3 or 4 hens already in the field, and he kind of walked away from me. And I figured, it's opening morning. That bird will be here all season, and I just really never got back out. So I also came up empty this year, but for a good reason. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations on the new child there. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Happy for your family.
yeah. Thank you.
You bet. So looking across the state, kind of in general at first, how did the season shake up this year for Missouri hunters?
Yeah, so it was another good season. Last year we had a really big spike in harvest. Harvest is kind of a proxy for abundance. Short of doing a full statewide census on turkeys, we can kind of use harvest as like an approximation for if there's birds or not, right? So if harvest goes up, all things being equal, you would say there's more turkeys in the population. Last year, we saw a really nice jump in harvest. I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head, but it was almost 10,000 additional birds were harvested. This year, we saw another smaller jump. We got up to about 47,000 turkeys this year. So that was I jotted some notes down. So that was about a 6% increase over the 2023 harvest, but about a 20% increase compared to the 5-year average. So all in all, a pretty good season. I think we can attribute some of that to there's just more turkeys out there. We had a kind of a gap there between 2017 and 2020, 2021 where turkey production in the state was low, very low, problematically low, right? Some of that is just the natural cycle of things. Some of that is bad weather. There's a variety of things that probably come into play there. But since then, we've had kind of successively better turkey hatches each year, and last year in particular was really pretty good for us. So I think there was quite a few birds just that were out there that in years past hadn't been. So I think some of that has to play in it. Of course, we had the regulation change in Missouri where we allowed private land hunters to hunt all day, which was different than in years past. This is the first year for that. So certainly there's more opportunity for folks to get out there. Looking at some of the data, it looks like people did take advantage. We had birds telechecked in the evenings, but it's still about 85 or maybe even as close to 90% of our harvest came before 1 p.m. So it's still very much a morning hunt for folks in Missouri, which is what we would have expected.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember growing up that 1 p.m. cutoff, Nick. I've always wondered what is the purpose of that early afternoon cutoff time?
Yeah, so that went into place in our first turkey season, and back in 1960, they had a biologist, John Lewis, who was doing his best to get birds moved throughout the state, right? So we had kind of a core little population down in the Ozarks. We were transplanting birds, and his goal, as I understand it, I never met him, and he's unfortunately passed. But his goal was to have a turkey hunt in a county within 5 years of reestablishing the population. So at that time, it was just really conservative. They wanted to make sure that the turkeys had a chance to breed, that the turkeys had a chance to kind of loaf around in the afternoon, things like that, as the population was going through that restoration phase. We probably completed the restoration phase, if you want to call it that, in the 90s. Certainly by the 2000s, the population was well restored, right? That's when we were harvesting 60,000 birds in a year in 2004. So it just kind of became a relic, as far as I understand it. There's some concern that hunters in the afternoon are going to be bumping hens on nests. I'm not certain that that's a giant concern for me because the places where hens like to nest are not places where I tend to go turkey hunt. It certainly happens, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that that's the driving reason behind the regulation as it was written. We've seen a lot of states kind of go from a 1 p.m. to an all-day season, and they haven't really seen any declines in their population as a result of that extra harvest. And hunter satisfaction has remained steady, which is something we also keep track of.
Earlier, when you were mentioning, improving some of those hatches
Yeah.
for the population, how important is habitat when it comes to that? And could you maybe discuss with the listener some of the efforts MDC has in habitat management and habitat improvement?
Yeah, so habitat is key. So whenever we think about the turkey population, you can kind of think of it as a budget, right? You've got subtractions from the budget that we harvest and loss to predation, just old age, and then the additions, right? And that's production. So you got to balance that. If we're losing more birds than we're producing, then we're going to see a decline of population. turkeys are very much a kind of a bottom-up species, right? So a good hatch carries the population for several years. We expect to see fluctuations in that production, but all the work that's been done around the country, wow, that's probably aggressive, all the work, but very much a lot of the work that's been done around the country would point to the fact that production is down, right? So we're just not producing as many poults as we once were. And our own research in the state supports that, certainly. So the question becomes, right, why are we not producing as many poults? And it really does come down to habitat. There's a lot of things that need to go right for poults to survive, right? The weather needs to sort of work out. There needs to be food on the ground. Predation is obviously an issue for turkeys because everything likes to eat a turkey, especially when they're little and can't fly. But good habitat mitigates all those other risks. If it's a really wet year and all of the good nesting habitat just happens to be in the lowlands, well, we're going to lose a lot of nests to flooding, right? But if we've got more nesting habitat in the uplands, right, that helps to kind of buffer us. Predation, right? So good turkey habitat is actually bad predator habitat. So good turkey habitat management is actually a form of predator management. I'll never tell anyone not to trap because I think it's a pastime that's dying, and that's unfortunate, right? Any excuse to be outdoors is a good excuse. But predator management without habitat management is probably you're not going to see the same benefits as if you were to do them together. So habitat is really key. One of the things the department has done is kind of to promote habitat or to really focus on habitat is we've started our turkey habitat initiative, and these are popping up around the country with other states. Certainly, the National Wild Turkey Federation has a habitat incentive program. But what we're doing is it's going to be kind of threefold. We're going to put together a pretty big, elaborate document that I was just reviewing yesterday. That sort of functions as a habitat management guide for land managers, right? It doesn't matter if you've got 10 acres or 1,000 acres, right? You can be doing something for turkeys on your place. And this hopefully gets you to see kind of an idea of what you can do. We're also going to be producing a video series. It'll probably be somewhere in that 20, 25-minute range. And that was through a very generous donation from our state chapter here in Missouri of NWTF. They're funding that. So essentially that's going to be kind of a video workshop where we go out, we introduce people to different types of habitat, how to manage for them, what isn't good habitat, things like that. But then we're also, and this is kind of the thing of the moment, right, is we're hosting some turkey habitat workshops. So we've got, and I've got a flyer here, that's what I'm looking at. We've got 6 workshops coming up between May 18th and July 13th, kind of scattered throughout the state that interested landowners can go to these workshops and learn, all that it takes to put good turkey habitat on the ground. They're free to participants. We do need you to register just so we can kind of get a sense for how many people are going to be there. And there will be a lunch provided. So it literally is a free lunch. But yeah, so coming up in the central region, the first one will be in Versailles here, May 18th. So that's coming right up. That's a couple Saturdays away. So if you have any interest at all in that, I very much recommend you sign up. There's still slots open, but they might fill up pretty quick. So it's worth getting in on that.
Thanks a lot for sharing the date on that and the information. Yeah. One of my last questions here, just, how does the population look throughout the state as far as north versus south, I guess? I'm familiar with the northern part of the state growing up there, the terrain features there. What's that habitat and terrain look like in the southern part of the state? And is turkey hunting pretty prevalent in the southern portion?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely there's pockets, right? So there's areas of North Missouri that have a higher turkey population or higher turkey abundance than other regions. The northwest corner of the state probably has some of the lower turkey population or abundance of anywhere in the state. That's a lot of ag up there. I think that has a role to play. But as far as the breakdown between northern Missouri and southern Missouri, kind of our highest harvest, density tends to come kind of north central Missouri, along the Missouri River, and then along the Mississippi River. And then there's a pocket kind of down in the Ozarks where we also have some pretty good turkey harvest. So it's spread out pretty well across the state. The Boot Heel in particular it has very low turkey numbers, but that's horizon to horizon crop field. So that kind of makes sense.
Nick, how can hunters and listeners stay connected with some of the research work and the habitat projects that MDC does? How do they stay connected with your teams?
Yeah, well, we try to be as as good as we can be about promoting stuff on our social media. Honestly, that's probably the best way. Anything we produce will certainly get some publicity there. Certainly our website, mdc.mo.gov is a good spot to go to look for new things, especially things like turkey research. Those will pop up on kind of the main page as important topics. So it shouldn't be too hard. And certainly you can always email me if you have questions or comments, or you want to yell at me. I'm happy to chat. Yeah, just find me. That's a big part of the job, and I enjoy talking to our hunting public. So happy to do so.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on the show. Best of luck this year, and hopefully we can have you on back soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Brent.
Again, Nick Oakley there with the Missouri Department of Conservation. And thanks a lot for joining us here on the episode this week, right here on Brownfield's Outdoor Adventures. I'm Brent Barnett.